Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. We've got a pretty full agenda tonight, so we'll get right into it. We have eight things under discussion. The last four I'm going to postpone till after the public hearings, because that's basically just our work. So we'll start with the first one, a discussion of wetlands replication plan for Jellystone Park, 20 Shoestring Road.
Members of the board, my name is Dan Flores with SFC Engineering, representing Jellystone Park. Here tonight to present the planting plan. That was one of the orders of condition. The original plan had proposed replication on the east side of the cranberry bog where the wells are placed. That area is not viable, so we are proposing to relocate that to the south and the east side of the bog. The area we propose does provide double the impact area, and our plan does include a planting plan as well as construction details and sections for the contractor to follow. I believe two members were not at the meeting. I do have a full-size plan if you guys are interested in seeing it.
Here, I'll give this to you guys. This is mine. The field is. Or you can take a big one.
Yeah, I'll take the big
one. Okay.
I'm good.
So essentially, the wells were placed in the bog, which resulted in a wetland impact. We're able to reduce that impact down to 1,500 square feet, and so we're proposing 3,000 square feet of replication area. The area we're proposing now works well, and as I stated, the original area proposed is not viable. I believe I have a complete plan for you that again provides a planting detail, what kind of plants, as well as sections for the contractor to follow. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, Emil and Ann and Dave and I went on a site visit this morning, and we saw why the east area is not usable, and the area where they're planning to do the replication now is void of any kind of undergrowth or trees. It's an empty space where it looks like cars and trucks have turned around. So it seems to be a relatively smart choice of where to do the replication, as far as I'm concerned. Anybody have any other?
No, I feel the same way. I think it's a better place, and it would have caused a lot more damage to do it on that slope. And I appreciated the planting plan you gave us. I mean, that all looks good. So I think it was a good decision. I'm glad you're doubling the area. It's nice.
Carl, Curtis, any?
What was this was obviously settled, done before. So what was the original area, and what was the issue with it?
The area, the original area is on the right, where the cross hatching is.
Yeah.
And
okay.
they would have had to replicate there. The road that you see there,
This one here.
yes, is used to access the wellheads.
Okay.
And it's fairly well used. And it doesn't show elevations on here, but there's a huge upslope. So in order to move that road to the outside of that, there would have to be a lot of excavation, a lot of tree removal.
So a lot more disturbance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. Emil, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would just say that I think it's a positive net benefit for the project. You know, it was a thoughtful plan. We had, I had been out there before and taken a look at the original places where the replication was proposed, and I, suggested to Dan that they, try and figure out a new location for it. And I think, the species and the plants that are proposed in there look good to me. So, I think it's a very positive plan. I think, I'd recommend you vote to approve it as the replication plan for this project.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the revised replication plan for Jellystone Park, SC 126636.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is approved unanimously. Very good, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a safe drive home.
Okay, next up.
Sorry about that.
Discussion of SE 126-650, wetlands replication at 18 Indian Street.
Good evening, John Zimmer, South River Environmental, on behalf of the proponent. This is an interesting project. The original approval that was issued by the commission required the fill and replication of a wetland to basically maintain the 65-foot undisturbed buffer zone for the project. The project's been constructed. We were getting ready to go and do the replication work on the site, so I met with J.F. McKinnon and the owner on site and looked at it. And it just struck me from an ecological perspective that the existing wetland and the existing buffer that's there is natural, it's functioning. I just did not really see what would we be gaining from an ecological perspective with respect to filling that wetland in to create a new wetland that then introduces the potential for invasive species colonization. You know, takes a longer term for that wetland and the buffer to get back to a functional perspective. So I recommended coming back and talking to the commission to see if you would be amenable to amending the order to remove the requirement for the wetland fill and replication. And I believe that some of the commissioners were out on site today and took a look at it. I apologize, I couldn't make it to the meeting this morning. And that you discussed, you know, potentially putting in a post and rail fence to basically isolate that area and prevent future disturbance from going into the undisturbed buffer. So, you know, I think that what I would recommend from a regulatory perspective is an amendment to submit an amendment to the order of conditions or a request for an amendment that would remove the replication requirement, provide a revised site plan with showing the post and rail fence that would now become the plan of record, and then come back to the commission through the formal public hearing process again with re-notifying abutters, and then having another discussion if the commission's amenable to that. That, from my perspective, is the correct mechanism under the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw to take care of that. But certainly, I'd love to hear the commission's perspective based on what you saw out on the site today.
Would any of you guys like to look at the approved plan?
Those guys probably would.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, yes, Ann and Dave and myself and Emil were there today and met with the homeowner and also representative from McKinnon. And we took a look at it and we saw, what you were talking about. I think, Emil, you have some thoughts on this matter. I'm going to let you speak first, and I want to hear from the other board members.
Sure. So I think in this case, from my understanding of the wetlands replication, guidelines in the Wetlands Protection Act, like wetlands replication should be used in a situation where it's required that a wetland be disturbed. In this case, it was, permitted partially because the house initially was proposed within a 65-foot no disturb buffer, and the commission required the applicant to come back and revise that plan. At the time there was talk about potentially moving those buffer zones on the lot by using wetlands replication, i.e. filling in that wetland at the back of the house and replicating more wetlands on the back side of that wetland. It's a very well vegetated area. It wasn't super wet while we were out there today, but you could see how it, provides a lot of habitat for, wildlife and stuff like that. I just don't see that, in a case like this, we should be, issuing permits that are requiring people to fill in wetlands, and, it's going to require access for machinery, which could require cutting down mature forested area. So, I just see this as a kind of a last case scenario that we really shouldn't be permitting wetlands replication unless it's really necessary for us to disturb these areas. In my personal opinion, I think it's better to permit a house within 65 feet and issue a variance rather than issue a permit requiring someone to go in, disturb a wetland. Wetland replication can be effective, but it really has to be done with care in order for you to replace, a natural wetland that provides a lot of natural value. And, in a lot of cases, these replication areas, if they're not maintained and they're not monitored by a wetlands professional, it doesn't really work out to be something that's a positive ecological benefit for a project. So, I wasn't around at the time when we permitted this, but I just feel like in a case like this, we should be really looking for solutions that are, benefiting the wetlands that we're here to protect. And I don't think that, this was very well thought out at the time. And I think, this is a reasonable request. The house is already done. The area is, not causing any more erosion or disturbance toward the wetland. So I think, what we can do in a case like this, is ask the applicant to submit a amended order of condition or request for amended order of conditions. And that would, like John is saying, it would allow us to have a mechanism for changing that order, because the order does read that, wetlands replication is required. I think that's the cleanest way to do it, but, I'm open to hearing what you guys, what your thoughts on that are.
Well, you two were there today. I would like to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts.
I mean, it makes sense to me not to do the replication, just because we walked around there quite a bit. But if, we did talk about maybe putting up a split rail fence, but I think if we did that, we would like some plantings done, maybe put the fence like 4 feet from the wattles that are there, and put some native species behind the fence on the wetland side. And so put up that fence, where the wattles are currently? Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, so would that encroach into the existing lawn?
It would encroach a little bit on the lawn, yeah. But then it would give a buffer there for, at least for somebody else who buys the house, that they know that this is, they shouldn't really encroach more on the wetlands than already has been done. But I think 4 feet would be reasonable from the wattle. I don't know, you guys were there, maybe,
Yeah, so I think right now the edge of the lawn is sitting at like 25 feet off of that wetland line approximately. So, that would, kind of set a boundary somewhere around like 25, 30 feet, which would be, kind of there's already boundary markers that are required as part of the original order that mark the edge of the, cleared area. So, in amending the order, you guys could require that they set those markers on a split rail fence and put some plantings behind it, because in this case, the house is going to be, right kind of up against that 65-foot buffer. So the boundary markers are not going to be representative of a 65-foot buffer. They're going to be representative of something closer to like 30 feet. So that's,
Yeah, so I think the house is very close to a wetland, which isn't something we typically want to see, which isn't your fault. Like I think coming to us and your proposal makes sense, because what's back there is a beautifully matured wetland area, could even be a vernal pool. We don't want to disturb that to try to replicate something that, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this, but I've talked to some wetland scientists about the replication process, and it's just really hard to actually do. In many cases, it fails. So why would we take up a great natural wetland to replicate it? It wouldn't be as good. So I think our concern now is just it's very close to wetlands, and we just want it to be delineated, I think.
Would the commission be amenable to putting the post and rail fence along the water line and then do additional plantings in the buffer? Because if you looked at it, you know, from the water line in, there's some kind of open areas that could be supplemented with shrubs and trees, you know, versus, you know, having him lose some of his lawn.
Yeah, what I just said was just a suggestion. I don't know. I thought it'd be more protective of the wetlands if it was set back a little bit, you know, from the water line. Because the water line is basically right on the wetlands boundary, right? I mean, it's...
Well, if the replication had been done.
Yeah.
Right,
It's-
but
it's
if we put in, you know, some robust plantings, some larger plantings that might normally be used in a buffer setting, I think that would serve the same purpose.
All right. I know neither of you were there. Do you have any comments?
The only comment, I'm not a big fan of the wetlands replication anyway. I've made my point clear on that in previous projects, but if we don't have to disturb an area that doesn't need disturbing, then I think that's the number one goal, is to not disturb something for no reason.
All right, Curtis, anything to add?
Just trying to remember, I know we've been out there a few times. What was altered originally, or
What you're seeing there was going to be filled in.
okay, it was just going to be
So
filled.
that otherwise the 65-foot line would have gone almost through the middle of the house.
Okay. Yeah, this is the one the house
Yeah.
got moved out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember. Yeah. That wasn't there really, so I'm not sure what.
Okay.
Well, so you'll come up with a plan and bring it to us? We can maybe discuss it then? Is that
Right,
the thing to do?
what we're going to do is submit a formal request to amend the order of
Right.
conditions, and there'll be a revised site plan.
Okay.
That shows where the post and rail fence will be, that'll show where the plantings will be. You'll have a list of, you know, what we're proposing to plant in that area. The only other question that I would have is that if you issued an amended order, it would then be within that 65-foot buffer. Should we include a variance request in there as well?
Yes,
Just to keep
you would have to.
everything
Yeah.
You would have to.
Okay.
Okay. I understand everything that you're saying, but I also think about precedent. What do we say to the next guy who wants to build a house 20 feet from, you know? If we hadn't put replication on this plan, that house would not have been built. It's as simple as that. Because the 65-foot buffer zone is there for a reason. We worked with the builder to come up with this plan so that the house could be built the way he wanted it. I understand everything that you're saying, and I saw that today, and I saw how nice it was, and I understand that. But if we allow this to happen, then the next person that comes in, we have to allow as well.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's a site-by-site basis that we approve these projects. A variance is there for a case like this with a limited site where it's a residential lot, there's buildable land on that lot, and whether or not you guys were willing to permit, disturbance within 65 feet or within the 100-foot buffer is up to you on that application basis.
Well, it was clear at the time we weren't willing to do that.
And I agree with you. I went back and I watched those videos, and you guys weren't, looking at approving this project the way it was originally designed. Right. I just think, the way that this was worked with, I don't really feel like this is the case that wetland replication should be used, because it's really not necessary to disturb the wetland. It was necessary to disturb the buffer, and I just personally feel like disturbing the buffer is better for the wetlands than disturbing the wetland. So I think, in my opinion, construction of a house somewhere within the 65-foot buffer in some cases should be, something that a variance is issued for. In a lot of towns, they're a lot less strict than 65 feet. This is the way that it's done in Carver, and I totally respect that. But yeah, I just think it's a site-by-site, case-by-case basis. There are cases where you have a very limited lot and some disturbance, a well, septic system, something has to go within 65 feet. And that's my personal opinion.
Where's the delineation now as far as where the house is? Is the house
The house is,
without the replication?
It's like
Where's the
25
lot,
feet
where's
from-
the wetland?
do you have the original plan?
All I have is the proposed one.
Yeah, let me
The
see.
very first plan? What my concern is that if you look at the eighth item on our discussion tonight, is discussing the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. One of the things that we're trying to do is remove gray areas. We want things to be cut and dried so that all builders know exactly where we stand on everything. And this is creating more of a gray area than we have right now. So I'm of the opinion that if, in fact, and I'm getting the flavor from the board, that replication is not something that the board likes to do. And I understand the reasons why. If that's the case, then I think that when we discuss the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, we take replication off the table as an option.
It's fine by me.
And then we look at each house. And
It's fine by me as well.
in this case, that particular house might not have been able to be built. So, you said, Emil, when necessary, use replication when necessary. In this particular case, and we voted on this a year and a half ago, whenever it was necessary in order for them to build the house that they wanted to build. So,
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel like you guys should have allowed a house within 65 feet rather than doing wetlands replication in that case and trying to move buffer zones around. But that's not what was decided on at the time, and that's not how it was permitted, so.
again, it
that's,
becomes, what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish precedent and trying to establish rules are rules.
Yep.
And to eliminate gray areas makes it less expensive for the builders because they're going to know coming in what they can and can't do.
Sure.
Replication is an option to sort of bend the rules. So, in my opinion, and this isn't this particular lot, this is just overall. Because if we say yes to this, someone else is going to come in, they're going to say they're going to replicate, they're going to build the house, and they're going to come back and they say, you know what, it looks really pretty in the spring, let's not do it. So, from my standpoint, and I understand, I saw we all saw today.
I understand what you're saying. I do.
What I'm trying to do is not prevent them from doing this. I'm trying to prevent the next 20 builders to come in and say, well, they did it, I'm going to do it too. I want to do it too.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, I just say, I think that sometimes commissions, different people come on, and so we're stuck with decisions that might have been made 3 years ago, right? I mean, that's just the
Yes.
natural order of commissions like this.
It is.
So, I mean, I
It is.
understand the precedent thing, but I think the more we learn, the more we might change our, I agree, I think replication should be almost never done.
well, then that's something that we can put in front of town meeting in April.
Sure.
Get a vote.
I will say this is a unique situation. I've been in the field for almost 30 years. I've never had a commission require wetland fill to create a buffer zone. When you think about it, it's the Wetlands Protection Act, right? The buffer zone is there to protect the wetlands. Going in to disturb a wetland to create a buffer zone, it just,
Right,
it
well,
didn't make a lot of sense, so that's, so I'm glad that the commission is willing to entertain this. And, I agree that it's not a good precedent that you want to set to fill wetlands to develop a buffer zone.
right. And it's not a precedent that we want to set to allow houses to be 25 feet from a wetlands.
Agreed.
From the wetlands. And there are other pending projects in Carver where replication is being done for the same reason. And Some of them are, and every project's different, as Ms. Chadwick said, but,
But I think it's like you said, though, if we want to change the bylaws, then we don't have to worry about a set precedent being set, because then it would be.
we remove a gray area.
We remove right there.
It becomes
Right.
black and white. There's a 65-foot buffer, that's it.
And we could chalk this one up to like, okay, experience, you know?
Well, I mean, everything's different, everyone's different, and I understand looking at it today, and you know, it would have been nice to have seen it in the summer when everything was in full bloom, and maybe it was a little bit wet, but it was soggy underfoot, anyway. So anyway, that's my opinion on this project from the standpoint of bylaws and precedent, not from the standpoint of this actual particular project. I'm trying to protect the 65-foot buffer for Carver residents from the next 20 applicants who come in, as land gets more and more hard to find in Carver that's dry. You know,
Yep.
this is the beginning of something that's going to, I think, steamroll.
And you're right, you're seeing more and more of it. It's-
We are.
It's,
And it's always the Conservation Commission's, like, it's your decision whether you want to issue a variance for construction within the 65-foot
Yes.
buffer. It's not going to change.
Yes.
But right now, we're talking about, you know, obviously, this is a discussion item. We're not really voting on anything, but, you know, they wanted to come to us and show us, like, in the field, what it looks like, and that, you know, they're planning to make a request. So, you know, we're not making any decisions at this point. They're going to come to us with a plan, and you guys are going to have another opportunity to review it and approve it at that point, so.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
I get what you're saying, Sabri, and I don't disagree with you. It's, doing away with the replication might be the way to go, because it doesn't hamstring future boards, future commissions.
Right.
We're not bound by decisions that were made by other ones.
Right. Yeah, I think, were you here for this original? I think you might be the only
One
one.
of the first meetings I was at.
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, everybody
Your
else
name's
is-
on the sheet, so just say it.
Everybody else is new.
Yeah.
So, God, I've been here a long time. So anyway, I would say go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
And, you know, if the flavor of the board is to allow this, then I'm also in favor of putting the fence right at the wattle line. I think that's fine. And plants behind it. I did see where the, you know, there was a couple of little areas of just bare dirt that could be filled in.
And just for aesthetics too, it might be best to extend the fence just along the whole back there, you know, even though it goes up a rise there a little bit. There. For looks, I think, and just for, you know, like I said, aesthetics would look a lot better for you guys.
Just out of curiosity, how many more of these on Indian Street did we do with the replication? Do you know?
That's the only one.
That's
that I
the
know.
only one on
That's the only
Indian
one?
Street, I believe.
I thought there was one more. I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I think, no, maybe we just asked them to turn the house 90 degrees. So it was outside. I think that's what we did.
And I know we approved that one on Bates Pond
Yeah.
earlier in the spring.
Yeah, that's the other one that I was
That's the
thinking
other
about
one.
that had replication. And that was, you know, that was obvious that without replication, that house wouldn't have been built at all.
No.
So,
So if those are the only two that are outstanding that we know of, off the top of your
yeah, I
head?
think so. All right. Is the homeowner here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We met your wife this morning.
Yeah.
And she wants to remove the wattle along the property line with the house next door. I'm just reminding you that you probably had to say that. So I think we're fine with that.
Okay.
All right? So that wattle outside of the, you know, where it encroaches into the wetlands area
Right.
is fine to remove.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay,
That was
that
a
sounds
question
good.
this morning.
All right. We'll
Thank
be
you.
back.
All right,
you.
thanks.
Thanks very much.
Okay. We have a request for the COC Certificate of Compliance for the next-door neighbor to 18 Indian Street, SE 126662 at 20 Indian Street. How are you? Could you?
Good, how are you? I'm Gunnar Barth. I just moved down to 20 Indian 2 months ago, actually.
All right, can you just sign in, please?
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
So I had the order of conditions, obviously, and it didn't pass, obviously. I didn't realize, so probably a month ago, I called building inspector to get specs for for a shed and everything. So they told me, 8 to 10 feet off the property line, under 200 square feet, no permit or anything required. So I went ahead, started building it. You guys came out to do the final order conditions, saw the shed, obviously didn't pass because of it. So I'm just trying to, try to get the approval to get the shed built, because obviously when I bought it, it's told no shed, no garage. So obviously, shed, put lawn equipment, stuff like that in. I took some dimensions where the shed's going, like measurements and stuff. Do you want to see it, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the shed's right there with the measurements of the property line, how far off the back it is.
So it's the one we looked at last meeting, right?
Right. I think so, yeah.
So it's within the 100 feet.
It's well within the 100.
Yeah, more than half of it's in the 100.
Yep.
Yeah, because we went 11 feet off the back, I think it's called the wattle, I guess you call it. And then it's 10 feet off the property line from my neighbor.
Is this on sonotubes?
It is, correct.
Can you take another look at it? Yeah, please. Went by my eyes pretty fast.
Yeah, so I probably should have this conversation with the building inspector, but when it comes to like conservation permits,
Yep.
it's a separate department, and he's probably referring to like, you don't need a building permit for this.
Yeah,
But
I
I should
I
make it
completely
clear
understand, you know
with
what I mean?
him
That's why right when I
that,
found that out, I stopped, I stopped building, put top over it and stuff, hopefully try to get it resolved.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming in and
Yeah, of course.
giving us the opportunity to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
All right, Emil, what would you recommend in this particular case? What is your thinking on this?
The shed is approximately like, I want to say like 20 feet into the 100-foot buffer at the deepest part. So, my feeling is that, it's not the 65-foot buffer, it's the 100-foot buffer. He would have had to come to us and get a request for determination of applicability in order to permit this. So I think, probably something the commission would have been, willing to consider. It's not my place to say whether you would have permitted that under an RDA, but it's certainly something he should get approval for. So either he could come back with an RDA application and apply for it after the fact, or you could ask him to move it, which, he's already got sonotubes in the ground, so I think that's probably not his preferable option. So I don't think it's, we should be issuing the COC when it's, clearly something that's disturbing the 100-foot buffer that doesn't have approval. However, I do think, it's something that the commission would have entertained under an RDA application, and maybe that's something that, the applicant would be willing to do.
How many sonotubes are there? 4?
4, yeah.
One in each corner?
Yep.
And just so I know, did you have the shed in your original plans at all? No? It was something
No,
you added after?
because the builder obviously built it, and then I came in, bought the house, and wanted the.
And you added the shed?
Correct.
So it wasn't part of the original building?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
How high off the ground is the shed?
Maybe a foot at most.
So it's not laying, it's not on ground, it's not on grade.
No.
No.
I'm sorry?
It's probably on the back side of it too. It's maybe a foot and a half too. The back's higher because obviously the ground tilts, so we had to build it in the back a little bit higher to make it level.
Right.
Well, I would like to see it moved. I mean, I hate to tell you to do that, but I think that, again, setting precedents like this is not good, again.
I think that knowing how this board reacts to everything, I think if you had come to us with a plan, we would have asked you to move it. To
put
get
it out-
most of it,
outside.
most of it outside. You know, we kind of look at 50% of the building outside of the 100-foot, so,
We could compromise a little bit, right, and use the existing front sonotubes as the back sonotubes, right?
yes.
I understand that the walls and the rafters, everything, that's all right, you know what I mean, that's
Yeah.
all gonna be wasted wood. So it's,
I know, but
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I should have, if I knew that I needed to fill that out, I would have, you know what I mean? That's why, when I found that out, I stopped and I actually came, I think a couple weeks ago, to try to talk to you to start filling that form out, and you told me to come to the meeting, which I'm here, you know what I mean?
Well, I think we need to have an RDA, a request for determination of applicability, and,
or if you want to just move it out, you don't, it would
it's-
cost you a lot less money maybe in the end if you just moved it out.
I'm already,
No, but I mean, if you had to go
$2,000.
get an RDA and you have to hire somebody to do it,
yeah,
you might be better off just moving the thing out.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not gonna be able to reuse the wood or anything, so it's
Yeah,
kinda, I'm
I know,
already at.
he can do the RDA application himself as the homeowner. He doesn't
can.
have to hire a engineer. It wouldn't be an engineered plan. It would be a sketch plan like
Yeah,
he's done
like
there.
this.
So, you know, it really should be filling out the forms and applying for it. Again, it would be up to the commission whether you guys are willing to approve that. That's just my, you know, recommendation. I think it's, you know, it's
No, I
existing lawn
agree.
area.
I think you gotta start with an IDA.
Yeah, but what will be the end result? I mean, we gotta-
We don't know. I mean, we got,
I mean,
we
know
gotta talk
it-
to the building department about, you know what I mean, as far as,
yeah.
What do you
they gotta
plan-
take, they gotta take
what you
everything
plan to
into
put in there?
consideration.
You know, it's like I'm gonna get a lawnmower, snow blower, you know, my daughter's toys, like stuff like that. Because obviously, when I bought the house, I was told no garage.
Right.
So you know what I mean? It's just no place to put that stuff. I'm not gonna
Right.
leave it out all winter or anything. You know what I mean? It gets damaged
Gotcha.
and stuff.
No, I understand. The reason
So-
we're asking is because any chemicals or anything that might leak. you
Oh,
know,
no, yeah, understandable, yeah.
That's why I was asking if it's off the ground, which is, I remember,
Yeah.
it's pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, you know what I mean? Not gonna put it right on the ground. You know what I mean? So.
No. Yeah.
All right, well, let's do an RDA and see where we come out and stand on this. In the meantime, talk to the building inspector. But again,
Certainly.
this is, you know, it's another precedent thing, so there's room to move it. I hate to put people through that, but
I would too, but I think it should be moved.
I do too.
It's
So,
unfortunate.
Did the builder tell you why you couldn't have a garage?
He didn't. It was just in the listing. It just said no garage.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, I understand a huge garage, but I mean, a 12 by 16 shed under 200 square feet. I didn't.
No, I get it.
You know what I
Just-
mean?
And I
It's-
feel bad, I feel bad that this is the position you're in. but-
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, this is another issue with the building department.
I believe
Yeah,
in
they
this
should have said
particular...
something to
Yeah, I
me.
think
Yeah.
like
Yeah, 'cause I mean,
sometimes
if
when
they
they
told
talk
me, I
about
wouldn't-
I know.
permits,
You would've-
they're just
Yeah.
referring to
Oh, I
building
get it. You know,
permits.
but again, they need to take, I think they need to take everything into consideration, but.
May I offer a comment? I don't want to interrupt you.
Yes.
I know Taylor Donovan, just as a public member, under the Wetlands Protection Act, I know for single-family homes, addition of a shed is a minor activity within buffer zone, so it would be something for your consideration if you're preparing any kind of permit application or an RFP. I can't speak to the Carver Wetlands bylaw, but under the Wetlands Protection Act.
It's a little bit more strict under.
Yeah,
the
we just say
Carver.
structure.
Yeah.
A structure can't be in this
Understood. Yeah, I
buffer
don't want to speak to that.
buffer zone. So, okay. So, talk to Emil and find out how you need to go about getting a request for determination of applicability,
Okay.
an RDA, and you'll come back and probably with this plan again.
Okay.
Yeah, would you mind just putting your email address on there so I can send you
Yep,
the
I
forms? Okay, perfect.
And don't do more work until,
No, I topped it up and everything. You know, right when I found that out, I stopped working on it because I didn't want any more issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
it's-
completely understand. So, I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming
Okay,
in.
yeah, here.
Yeah.
Just for you, Carl asked the question, do you know why there wasn't a garage? And they believe the reason there wasn't a garage is that it wouldn't fit because of the wetlands.
Right.
Right.
There was originally a garage on that plan, and it had to be taken
Yeah,
away
yeah.
because of the wetlands.
Yeah, I completely understand, I
So,
appreciate it.
okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Request for COC, Certificate of Compliance for Lot 1, 104 Main Street. We were there today, too.
Is this our other building?
This is the first of the three.
Yes. Is there anybody here?
Is there anyone here from? No?
Apparently not. I don't see
Okay.
any familiar faces.
All right.
Yeah, I thought one of the people from Grady Consulting was going to be here, but I don't see them. So I think we move forward.
Just table it.
All right, I mean, we looked at it. It seemed fine. Everything that, the only difference with the as-built from the plan we approved was the change in direction of the rear steps coming down from the deck.
Yep.
And the turnaround area in the driveway was bigger, but that was out of our jurisdiction anyway. But
They put the fence up.
they put the fence up. The fence looks good. They hydro-seeded. It's all green grass already. The only green grass in town, I think. And they've seeded along the other side of the fence with some natural grasses. They haven't grown yet because they weren't hydro-seeded. They're just seeded. So,
I mean, is it necessary for them to be here? I mean, they don't have to be here.
no, it's not necessary.
I guess not.
COC.
Yeah, I thought one of them said they were going to be here for this.
If we
but-
have questions, we can delay.
Yeah.
We can delay it.
But I don't have any
I
questions.
don't have any questions.
Okay.
No, I've driven by it 100 times. It looks like they
Yeah.
did what they were supposed to do.
Right. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the COC for Carver. What is this? Carve-001.
So that's
Because it
it's a
doesn't fall-
bylaw only filing. It's not a DEP
Oh, okay.
filing, so that's why it's.
Oh, right.
it's
Okay.
it's a
Lot
bylaw
1,
only.
104 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Carl made the motion. Dave made the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. It's approved unanimously. Okay. The next four articles we'll talk about after. Let's get right to our public hearings. First up, DEP file number SE 126-680. This is an abbreviated notice of a resource area delineation. The address is off Rochester Road. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 281, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th, 24, in Meeting Room Number 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, ANRAD, submitted on behalf of Pierre Cole, who is requesting under the ANRAD confirmation of the wetlands resource areas on the property. This project is located off Rochester Road, Carver, Massachusetts, Assessors Map 90, lots 4-3, 5-0, and 5-1. All interested parties are invited to attend. Okay.
I'm Jack Sargent of Outback Engineering, and we're looking, filed an ANRAD off Rochester Road, looking for confirmation of the wetland line at the north property line, and also the pond to the north of the property as well. There's three existing, or three abandoned bogs on the site. The most southwest bog looks to be connected to the existing bordering vegetated wetland to the east of the property. The other abandoned bogs were found to have upland plant species in them, and based on the historical USGS maps as well, it was shown that to appear to be uplands before the bogs were there. I can take any questions from the board. We're looking for input on how to move forward on this.
Okay, again, we did a site visit today, and we walked around the property, and we're most interested in the abandoned bogs. And they've been abandoned for a long time. There's some pretty tall trees in there, 50-footers, at least in the one that's closest to the northeast. Everything else that we looked at, it seemed to be in order, but I know that, Dave, you had some
Yeah, I have some questions. First of all, I looked at the wetland and wetland change map from the DEP, and they have this area, especially the abandoned bog in the center there, they have it marked as a marsh at one time. So that's based on historical photographs. So we're a little bit unsure that this is truly an upland bog. And same with the other one. So, and we got caught in this before. So what I would like to see happen is that you do a series of soil borings across each one of those bogs. That would consist of at least 4 borings in each one.
I know we did do soil borings for, we had our wetland scientist go out there. He did soil borings. I don't know exactly how many and where exactly he did them, but we could, if necessary, go out and do more.
Yeah, well, I would like to see them, at least 4 of them on each, and be at least, the first boring of the 4 be at least 5 feet from the edge, and then work your way across the bog, you know, especially the lengthwise of the bog. And then have them go down at least 4 feet, because I think otherwise you're not gonna know what's going on there. The reason is because we've had claims in other parts of town, these are upland bogs, we just wanna make sure they're upland bogs before we allow any kind of thing going on there.
I understand that.
So, and also because the DEP map here that I see anyway shows this area as being a marsh at one time, it just makes it a little, you know, more subject to like, maybe there really was something there, you know, so. I know you guys are.
Okay. If he's done borings, we'd like to see that
Yeah, if he's done borings, right.
where they were,
Borings here.
soil sample points.
Yeah, so we definitely did at least 2 soil samples. I'm not sure.
But doing a soil sample and a boring is separate, I think.
Yeah, yep.
So,
Okay. I'm just seeing if there's anything in here that could shed any light on this.
the only definitive thing would be to do borings. I mean,
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I know in the past that, you know, bogs that are, they didn't tend to make bogs in upland areas if they didn't have to. You know, I mean, that was,
Hydrology, did do some soil
Yeah.
testing.
I didn't see this.
Yeah, it'd be great to see, I guess, on the site plan where the soil samples were taken. You know, it seems like there's only 2, but I think what the commission's looking for is specifically for these, quote, upland bogs. If you look at the Carver wetlands bylaw, you know, the state doesn't really take jurisdiction over upland bogs, but Carver, you know, if there's, you know, a project where a house or new construction is going up within 100 feet of an upland bog, we do take jurisdiction on that under our Carver wetlands bylaw. So that's why, you know, the commission is particularly interested when people are claiming you have upland bogs on the site. You know, it's obviously we were out there today. They've been abandoned for a long time. There's mature trees growing all over them. We didn't see any signs of hydrology, but it's also a drought, so it's hard to really tell what's going on at this time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the USGS maps that are in here both show bogs. They seem to be in different places, but... I'm assuming that this USGS locus map that's earlier in the packet is current?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that even indicates bogs, but obviously not wetland or upland. All right, so is it the flavor of the board to ask for some borings?
Yes. Indicated on the plan where they're gonna be done. And
Okay.
I mean, should he come in and show us where they're gonna be before they, or?
Well, do you, Emil, have any kind of expertise on where you think they should be? I think it's probably easier.
I would say closer to the middle of the bog, like spread out throughout the bog as much as possible, but towards the middle, like we could kind of see from the edges what it looks like on the edges, but the middle of the bog would probably tell you a little bit more about, what was specifically there. I guess my question would be, how deep would you require?
David said 4 feet.
I think 4 feet would be good, just to be positive.
And like 4 feet with an auger, basically.
Auger, yeah, you can hand auger that probably. I mean, I would have them go lengthwise across each one of these bogs, just because you'd cover more area that
Yeah.
way. If you did 4 in each, would be, I think, would
get a better cross-section.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Length,
right.
parallel
You
to the
understand?
road.
Right.
Yeah,
Go right
yeah.
down. the
Parallel
side
to
of
the road.
Parallel to Rochester
And
Road.
just do 4 in each, and just,
Okay.
and space them out, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well,
Equal distance for whatever the,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
start 20 feet from the edge of the bog and then
Equally
split it
distant,
4 ways or 3 ways.
So you could do that?
We could do that. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. All right, so we will continue this hearing.
I
need a-
think the homeowner or something.
Oh,
You got people, homeowners and stuff that want to say.
okay.
Sit down.
Yes, sit down. Yeah, please sit down. Sign in, please.
My name's Rick Phillips. I live on 22 Rochester Road, one of the properties directly across from this. In the abandoned bog wetland, there's an area right along the road, right on the bog, that's a drain, and that drain runs under the road into my backyard. And I'm wondering if that can be filled in at this point. It's not shown on this plan.
You're across the street, you're saying?
Yes.
He's talking about this wetland here,
Okay.
and he's across Rochester Road.
Oh, this wetland over here. Oh, the abandoned wetland bog, okay, the one that has the wetland flags on it, okay.
Can you take a look at that map right there? There seems to be a little bit of a finger of that wetlands going onto the road and underneath it.
I see that, but I do see a bunch of them going, maybe there's a lot of them going along there, but there is a little finger and it's
Is that approximately where you think that?
in that neck of the woods,
Okay.
yes.
And it's draining into your yard?
Well, it drains to the back of my yard, into a bog that's in back of me, yes.
How far away from the road is that?
It goes directly under the road. You don't have a map of my, actually, if I can show you my property in the site plan,
Okay.
Yeah.
mind if I come up and just point it
Yep.
out?
yeah, please.
Whose plan do you want me to show?
That's fine. Oh, over there, okay.
This is my property here.
Yeah.
It drains here and it kind of runs like that.
So it's long.
Yes.
So he,
So is it like a ditch?
No, it's a culvert. Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't even know it was there until we bought the property.
It looks like a 10-inch steel pipe.
and you're saying that's a natural flow path for water, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and actually, the owners, or the previous owners,
Yeah.
went in there and they dug it out in the wetlands.
Right.
So it would drain.
So, okay. So you're concerned that they're gonna fill it in and it won't be?
No, I can fill
I was
it.
gonna
You
say,
wanna fill it, okay, you
I
wanna
got
fill
the
it.
feeling he wants to fill it
Oh,
in.
yeah, well, I wasn't quite sure. Okay, I got you, okay. Seal it up.
So it looks like it is in the area of this little finger right here.
Yeah.
From what he drew on the map.
So I'm not sure exactly how old that pipe would be, but it's probably an old culvert to allow the water to flow underneath the
I'm
road.
thinking if that's wetlands, wouldn't that negate the idea of natural wetlands if you're constantly having it drain through man-made item?
Well, I mean, it all depends on how the road was designed, but the culvert was put in for, to allow hydrology to flow back and forth or
Well,
one
I thought that
direction.
negates the idea of wetlands.
No, the area can still be a wetland even if it drains into another, part of the property. Right now it's probably very dry out there and there's probably not much flow going on, but I'm sure if it's a big rain event and there's flooding and stuff going on in the wetland,
Tomorrow, the next day.
that's when you're obviously getting water coming out through that pipe. I don't know how old that was when that work was done, but it's not my recommendation to fill in any culverts, which could have been part of a roadway, or it's in a wetland area. We typically don't allow people to just fill in a wetland to block off a channel of connected hydrology.
Make it nicer wetlands if it was wet and not filled in?
I don't know that answer to that, but
Does the water run all the time?
Only when it's really wet outside.
Okay.
Well, it seems to me that culvert was put there for a reason. And to just fill it in would be counterproductive to why it was put in there in the first
But it might
place.
cause more problems and.
it could even cause flooding on the roadway, which might be a reason why they had a culvert there in the first place. But
It floods.
it's not
it floods
our
on that.
it's not our jurisdiction to go into someone else's property. Like this part of the property isn't even owned by Mr. Pierre Cole, who's the applicant. I think this part of the property is owned by Pie Train LLC. It's a different owner.
Isn't this part of the application?
The application is to delineate the wetland on that part of the property as well. But it's not our decision to go in there and fill in a culvert, to stop it from draining onto your property.
Okay.
I mean, we can't fill in wetlands, like, that's part of our charter. You can't just fill them in, so but I don't know what you're experiencing, like, it might have helped if we could see pictures of what your concern is.
Well, you know what? Behind my area is considered wetlands. If you block that off, maybe it wouldn't be so much wetlands anymore.
Well, then that would be a problem too, because
Yeah,
then you're
that-
destroying a wetland.
That's kind of what we're doing, is trying to protect the wetlands.
What you were trying to.
But I see it as a man-made, you're creating it through a man-made device. I don't see that as really
It's-
wetland.
Well, the road itself is a man-made device that went
through a
through a wetland, and that's why they put a culvert there, is to connect those two wetland areas.
Before there were any houses at all there, that's what he's saying, yeah.
Right. And it's taken on characteristics of a wetland over time, so.
I get what you're saying. You think the culvert is what's causing your land on your side to be called a wetland, but it was
Well,
probably.
it may not be totally that.
Right.
It sure is helping it.
Oh, yeah, well, again, that's,
Yeah.
like Emil said, the road is what is the intrusion in the wetland, and the culvert was probably put there to continue, to connect the two wetlands together.
Because I don't think anybody even knows it exists. I mean, nobody knew it exists, so if I didn't say anything, somebody
Well,
could fill it in.
these folks are volunteers for the town on the conservation board. They're not members of the, town DPW or something like that. There may be people in the town that do know that it exists, but, you know.
But if you filled in a culvert, somebody would notice it was filled in.
I will.
Somebody in
Someone
town
else
would
might,
notice it.
you'd be surprised.
So the water flows from across the street towards your property?
Right.
That's the downhill way?
Right.
Okay.
I'm in a butter as well. And that pipe comes right down the ditch, and I believe it was cranberry bog. I haven't done soil samples to see if it's upland or not.
Okay.
But that runs under the road, from the ditch and the bog, under the road, another 100+ feet into a lower old bog.
Okay.
That's the picture. You know, and then it'll get into my property. We're not talking about filling it in. We're talking about cementing the pipe, inside of the pipe.
Oh.
Stop-
But that
to
fills it
stop
in.
the flow. It was not done by the town.
Well, that would have the potential of flooding the road if it rained enough and creating a larger wetland across the street, if the water didn't have a place to go. Right now, we're hearing that when it rains and it's very wet, that culvert diverts water from the north side of Rochester Road to the south. If that option goes...
It's about 4 feet down, you'd have to have a lot of water. Because like I say, it's...
We've had a lot of water, not now, but we've had a lot of water. I mean, the fact that it runs at some point means that if it were stopped up, then that water would fill up behind it on the other side of Rochester Road and perhaps flood the road.
Well, anyway, I'm not here to argue that.
Okay.
I just wanted to...
All right, I understand that. Thank you, Roger.
Set the plan in the right way.
Okay. Well, I think that maybe the applicant can do a little investigating and find out.
We can, when we
See-
go out there to do the borings, we can go out there. and-
Yeah, just see if you can find some history to that. Do you know when this wetland bog was abandoned?
I don't, maybe my wetland scientist does.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out where, Roger, the bog that it empties out to on the other side, on your side, you're on the south side, right? Is that an active bog?
No,
That's abandoned as well?
yeah, it's... I believe it's the same bog owner on both sides of the road.
Okay, well, obviously, this bog is now for sale, or is going to be part of the deal. Okay,
Try to tie it together.
all right, so I guess the question for the applicant is to talk to the current owner and find out what he knows about that culvert and its use and how often, you know, why it was put there, when it was put there, and how important it is to maintain. So,
Yeah.
I do know in 1900, McFarland's had all vegetables growing in those bogs.
okay. All right.
If I may, I work for the owner, the
Oh.
current owner of the site.
Yes.
Yeah, would you come up and just sit in the chair and sign in there?
Sure. My name's Lee Bloom, and he hasn't owned it that long. He hasn't done anything with it, so he wouldn't know. And again, that's why we're just trying to figure out, you know, there's an existing house that's been abandoned, an existing garage, a lot of those fall within the new delineations and new regulations, for me. So that's why we had them go out. We're doing this, so we understand exactly the characteristics of the site.
Right.
Certainly we'll do the borings, and I'll have him check into this, but I know we have no historical knowledge. I've investigated whatever paperwork he had in-house. I think he got it at auction or something. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure about that, but.
Yeah, that could very well be, but...
Yeah, I just know he has no history of it, because, you know, when he gave me this site, I'm like, well.
I know, but any any kind of work that is done on the other end of that culvert would have ramifications for what he
Oh,
buys.
I'm not
So,
disagreeing with
yeah.
potential ramifications of this. I'm just addressing the fact you said the owner might know. He doesn't.
I was talking actually about the previous owner who
sorry.
Mr. Shores said might own both bogs, might have owned both bogs.
Sorry about that.
All
I
right.
misunderstood.
So, yeah, I think that we've got to try to figure out, tonight we're just voting on whether the wetlands delineation for these lots is right.
Right.
But I think that it's well worth, trying to uncover some part of this mystery.
Sure. I mean, I have no problem having them check into it.
Okay.
To the extent they can, and, the continuance. And I will have you guys connect, just, I don't know, their timeline to get
Sure.
it done, whether it falls in line with the next meeting or not, but
Yep.
I'll coordinate with you and whatever timeline we get if we can
Great.
continue to.
Yeah, I
and
think
for
our
now,
next
continue
meeting
to-
is December 4th, just so you're,
December 4th.
just so you know, if you need to submit anything, we already have the public hearing. We're probably going to continue it, so, you can get it to me anytime
Yeah,
before
with the
that.
holidays it may not, that's why, we just gotta, Jack has to check. it.
Sure. Yeah, and it might be helpful for your wetlands person to come along next time as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So just looking at, speaking of that culvert, they're looking at this 1918 USGS maps and 1942 map. It looks as though that's where the natural flow was at one time, before the houses were before any of the houses were there. So from the 1918 map, it looks like there's a stream that sort of almost terminated up near the road there. So, I don't know, but these are gross maps, it's really hard to tell, but.
It's a very large wetland system out behind
Yeah.
those houses in Rochester
that might have
Road.
been natural
So
flow.
typically when there's a large swamp like that, there's a kind of a central channel that's flowing, carrying water through that wetland. So, that might just be where it crosses the road.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
We'll do the investigation,
Yeah.
coordinate, and get it right.
great.
Awesome.
Thank you. I have one other question on the plan as presented. On the lot that's furthest to the west, right underneath the text that says number 0 Rochester Road, the 100-foot and 65-foot buffer zones seem to disappear. They just kind of end.
Where's the text I was talking about? Oh, up there, oh, okay.
Let's see what you're saying. Yeah, right here. I mean,
There's no continuation.
Yeah, so we didn't, because it wasn't on our property, we didn't come and actually flag that. We know it does connect up here. We can have a line come and connect the wetlands and.
I would do that because I'm thinking that this probably, connects up here.
Yeah.
That, and then this will go to there, but I'm just thinking that should probably be connected.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, great. All right. So I will, we're going to continue this. We'll say December 4th, but if the holidays make it to that we have to go to the 18th, we can.
Yeah, we'll know that this week, so that way.
All right.
Back and coordinate with you.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing until our next meeting on December 4th.
So moved.
Carl made the motion, second?
Second.
Dave,
But-
second?
But before, do you have enough time to do borings and all that stuff before the next meeting, or would you rather just?
That's what I have to find out.
Oh, okay.
That's
See.
why we're gonna.
I'll have to
find out.
talk to,
We can always postpone it if we
Okay,
have to.
okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, we'll know within the next 2 days, so that way we
Right.
don't mess up. the
we'll
agenda.
contact you when we
Okay.
get a timeline.
This way they can, if they get it done, that they don't have to wait.
That's right. Yeah, my expectation is it probably won't be the 4th, it'll
Okay.
probably be the meeting after that, but I'll find out from them and we'll go from there.
Is there anybody else that want to say anything? Did you want to say something? No?
I'm just here to listen.
Okay, okay. I know you were out in the field with us today, that's just what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of continuing until the 4th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The continuation is approved unanimously.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
You as well.
Next up, a request for a determination of applicability, an RDA, at 1 Briar Path Way. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, in Meeting Room 1 at the Carver Town Hall to hear the request for determination of applicability, RDA, filed by Justin Taylor to determine A, whether the boundaries of the resource areas depicted on the plans are accurately delineated, B, whether the area and/or work depicted on reference plans is subject to the jurisdiction of any municipal wetlands ordinance or bylaw of the town of Carver. The RDA is for installation of a new septic system. The property is located at 1 Briar Path Way, map 77, lot 3-8, Carver, Massachusetts. All interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. As you indicated, it's a simple septic system upgrade surrounded, and the property surrounded by wetlands. So I really was limited as far as where I could locate the new system. In fact, the new system is going approximately where the old system is. Because there's not many spots I can place this, meeting the setback for the well, which is in front. I was advised by my wetland scientist, that the wetland on the right-hand side, if looking from the street, is the more sensitive side, so I maintained at least 50 feet from there, which is a requirement for Title V. And that pulls me 43 feet from the other side, the intermittent stream / wetland. The Board of Health has approved the plan as presented, so I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay. I did not make it to this site visit, but Ann and Dave did. You both were at the site
Yeah,
visit. This was Emil.
it's
Yeah. Emil, do you want to add?
I would just say that right now, while it may be an intermittent stream over there, it's more of just a ditch that connects a bog to another wetland across the Briar Path, which is, it just looks, it's not like this is not like a major stream. It's definitely dry parts of the year. Obviously it's drought right now, so there's no water in it at all. But this is not like it's not like that's a BVW on the other side. It's kind of just a depression, which is a ditch that allows water to flow into the bog at the rear of the site.
Okay.
I mean, just going out there, the property is, there's not a lot of room there. You know,
Okay.
and a new septic system is better than an old septic system that's not working, you know, so that's, I mean, we're kind of stuck with that situation here, so, I mean, so.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. There was no other place really to put it, so,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, all right, so I guess negative determination is what we're
Yes.
looking for?
Yes.
Here, all right. So I will entertain a motion. Curtis, Carl, anything to add? I have nothing either.
Not a lot of options there.
No, okay. So I will entertain a motion for a negative determination on the RDA.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Carl and Dave. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That's approved unanimously. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
You too.
You as well.
You do.
Yeah.
All right, finally, 27 Wenham Road. We don't have a DEP number yet, so this will need to be continued anyway, but since we are all here, let's have, at least start the hearing. 27 Wenham Road, waiting for a DEP number. It's a notice of intent. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7:00 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, in Meeting Room Number 1 at the Carver Town Hall, to hear the notice of intent submitted by Wenham PVI LLC for the construction of a dual-use agricultural solar array on an existing cranberry bog, an improved access road within the 200-foot riverfront area, associated fencing, and an electrical equipment pad within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. This project is located at 27 Wenham Road, Carver, Massachusetts. Assessors Map 100, Lot 6-0. All interested parties are invited to attend.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a presentation. If we can pull it up, I'm happy to share. If not, I'm happy to just talk through. In the meantime, my name is Taylor Donovan. I'm an environmental scientist with VHB. I am here on behalf of the applicant, Wenham PV1 LLC. And I guess I'll just wait a second to see if we can pull up presentation, or I can
No,
try.
you can certainly get on HDMI1 here. But I just don't know
I can move over there if that is an easier solution. Okay.
Over the cable reach over there?
Yeah, so it's
No.
maybe this,
That's HDMI, that must be HDMI too. Did you try VGA? Oh.
if you want to bring it over here.
This is, shouldn't take this, I have a chair behind me. This is
I'm
fine.
happy to use it.
Oh. It doesn't look like Carver.
I was going to say that is not Carver.
Like Alaska or something.
Wow. We approve of
That's
that.
Iceland? That's Iceland?
Yeah, it's,
This is all signed.
There we go.
thanks. If you need more space,
No,
I'll.
I'm set.
Come over
Thank you. I
here.
appreciate it. Thank you, water.
Bring your microphone.
So as I mentioned, my name is Taylor Donovan. Here on behalf of the applicant. I am not an engineer, so I apologize in advance. Our engineer could not attend this evening. I'll try my best to answer any questions you may have on the more technical or engineering side. Happy to speak to the wetlands. And that we did not receive the DP file number, so we were anticipating attending a second hearing. Anyway, so the project is the proposed dual-use agriculture solar array at the property located at 27 Wenham Road. So I'm not, I guess a few of you may have attended a site visit this morning, but for those of you who may not have been able to attend, this is just an aerial image of the site. The red kind of outlines the boundary of the project limits. It's an approximately 25-acre site, and the bog is about 7 acres of active cranberry bog. There's an existing dirt road, which provides access from Wenham Road and to the bog, and then as well as around for access. Herring Brook is a perennial stream located to the west of the site. You can see it's a little bit segmented going up the west side. And then the northern portion of the site is pretty forested upland area. There's some steep slopes up there. And then to the south and the east, there's other commercial bogs. So there's a lot of wetland resources going on the site here. This is one of the figures that was submitted with the notice of intent application. Kind of just gives a nice graphic of the wetland resource areas, the buffer zones, and the 65-foot setback as well. So the main feature on the site is the cranberry bog, which is regulated as a bordering vegetated wetland. And wetlands 3, 4, and 6 are bordering on the bog. So those are the 2 to the north, and then there's one located to the southwest. Herring Brook, as I mentioned, is a perennial stream here, and the brook supports bank, BVW, some fringe up along that edge, land underwater, riverfront area, and bordering land subject to flooding. Then obviously the 100-foot buffer zone to bank and BVW, as well as the local 65-foot setback. And I don't need to tell you that you know hydrology on and around cranberry bogs. The hydrology is often manipulated for the purposes of bog operation, so I just wanted to mention that here. For the floodplain, there's no base flood elevation from the FEMA mapping, so it's mapped as a Zone A. There is, you can kind of see it in the top right here, at 97.9 is that base flood elevation for the adjacent Zone A. We did have a water resource engineer from our office kind of take a look at the site, and he advised us that it doesn't seem like that area necessarily connects directly to the bog, as it is indicated on the floodplain mapping. So using local, I believe he looked at a property that was adjacent, And then just the local topography for the site, he said that he recommended using elevation 110 NAVD 88 as a conservative estimate for the site was appropriate, and that pretty much brings the entire bog area into BLSF jurisdiction. So overall, the proposed project includes the installation of a 1 megawatt AC ground-mounted photovoltaic array, or PV array, within an active cranberry bog. And so we're proposing this project as a dual-use agriculture solar project, as defined by within the state of Massachusetts under the SMART program, and DEP does have some related policies for these types of projects. So that overall high level, the work includes installation of the solar array within the bog, modifying the existing access road to and around the bog. We have received, the project is currently undergoing review as well with the planning board. We've received comments from the fire department for widening the access road for emergency egress, and as well as changing the surface type to gravel from the dirt. Also, a request from the fire department was to provide parking and vehicular turnaround areas for the emergency vehicles. And then because it involves the installation of a solar array, we are proposing installation of necessary electrical equipment. So that'll include, there's 2 proposed utility poles, which are located pretty much right where the entrance is from Wenham Road on the west side, as well as subsurface electrical conduit throughout the access road. And then next to the proposed parking and turnaround area, which is located outside of buffer zones, and I'll show a map with all the shown, there's an electrical pad which has transformers, inverters, and other electrical equipment. Because of the request from the fire department to widen and kind of make the access road a little more accessible for emergency vehicles, we are actually proposing to relocate a section, and so the section that will be abandoned, we're proposing for restoration with native plantings, and it's within the riverfront area, so that gives us a little bit of benefit there. And then there will be associated fencing and signage, and loaming and seeding disturbed areas. So this is a graphic that's been provided to the planning board and kind of just gives a, you have, I don't think it was included in the plans, that I'm happy to send a copy of it if you'd like printed copies of this as well for the next hearing. But this just gives a nice visual on one page of what the proposed work looks like. So just in terms of the colors, the dark green is your wooded areas, the lavender color, the light purple is your cranberry bog, so that's the center of the site. The darker purple areas are the wetland areas, and then the orange is showing the proposed gravel access road. So if you can see where my cursor is, or I'm happy to just point to it on the screen. Actually, I think I did include an arrow. So that's the area, the portion of the access road that's going to be abandoned. That's the existing layout. That turn was just a little too tight for the emergency vehicles, for the fire trucks to be able to access. So they had requested that we relocate, and we were actually able to relocate it a little bit outside of Riverfront and move that portion away. Because we are within BLSF and these structures are located, the elevation will be at least, pretty much the top of the panels will be at 110 feet NAVD 88. The cranberry bog is at approximately elevation 99, and the panels need to be, per the policy by Mass DEP for the dual use projects, have to be 10 feet above the bog surface. So we do have fill volume within our floodplain area. So where the access road connects to the bog, we're proposing some grading to provide that compensatory storage at each incremental elevation where it's removed as a result of the panels and the posts going into the bog. And this is just a slide showing the proposed restoration areas called out in green in this snip from the plan, and then the planting table, which is included in the notice of intent.
So that's the restoration of the road, the old road, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because it's currently just a dirt access road. So to propose loam and topsoil and then native planting. So we have maple leaf viburnum, eastern shadbush, sweet pepper bush, some red maple, and white pine.
Does it wrap around the corner along the pond side, or does it just end at that?
It continues to the south and connects to the bog to the east. The applicant and owner are looking to kind of leave that area as is, just in case additional turnaround areas are needed for emergency access or even for the bog operation, so they're proposing to leave that. But where it cuts off is at the 65-foot setback from the bog. So we thought that was an appropriate area to stop the work. So I won't go through all of these in too much detail, but just some regulatory considerations for the SMART program. These are the provisions issued by DEP as guidance for how to, permit basically the dual use projects, solar and agriculture. Sorry about that. They recommend limiting the capacity to no more than 2 megawatts. We're proposing 1 megawatt. The lower edge of the panel must be at least 10 feet from the surface for tracking systems. So that's what we have here, that 10 feet above the bog surface. Maximum sunlight reduction, so basically the shading shouldn't be more than 50% per square foot. There is a shading analysis that was completed and submitted as part of the planning board application. So I believe that they've already looked at that. We're happy to provide that information as well for the commission's review. System designed to optimize balance between electrical generation and agricultural production. The intent is to maintain this as an active bog, so we obviously don't want to provide any detriment to the crop as a result of this project. So the system has been designed with that in mind of, maintaining normal bog operations. And then again, number 5, continuous agricultural production. And on the screen this is one of the details from the plan sheet, but just this is the typical panel design or layout we are working with. So again, there's a lot of resource areas here. There's a lot of regulatory compliance, and we did try to dive as deep into each of the applicable performance standards in the NOI. I won't reiterate those here for the sake of time and everyone's sanity, but just, I guess, some key things I wanted to highlight. So the proposed work in the cranberry bog, it will not alter the current functions of the bog as a bog. So in DEP's policy, which we reference in the NOI, they basically kind of allude to the fact that if the proposed work is not going to, the current function of the bog is a cranberry bog. It's altered hydrology, it's altered vegetation. We're manipulating it to maintain that use and that function. So the functions of the bog are not the same as the functions of an undisturbed or a more pristine BVW. So in the existing condition of the bog, we're not proposing to really alter that state or that use. And so in the policy, they kind of outlined that should all these things be considered, it doesn't necessarily work on the bog, or the installation is not necessarily an impact because you're maintaining those functions of the cranberry bog. And then for compensatory storage, we are providing that at each impacted elevation. And the portion of the access road that we're proposing to widen, relocate, and then convert to gravel, which under the bylaws is impervious to impervious, so not a big change. But for the widening and the relocation, it is reviewable as a limited project for access to a renewable energy site. So just for some of the performance standards where we're not necessarily meeting to the full extent, we're just seeking relief as a limited project for those. And then under the wetlands bylaw, we do have some work proposed within that 65-foot setback, so we are requesting a variance. This includes some of the widening of the access road, and where it was less impactful than, let's just say where it was less impactful, we proposed the widening on the far side of that, the existing roadway. So if it was going to require less grading or less tree clearing, we tried to optimize that path for the roadway. But there is some widening proposed within the 65-foot. The 2 utility poles that are proposed and the concrete apron at the site entrance are within that 65-foot setback from BVW and from the Herring Brook. The subsurface electrical conduit within the access road, portions of that, that's within the existing roadway footprint except for where it will be moved. Portions of that are within the setback. And then installation of the security gate at the entrance and fencing and signage around the bog. As mentioned in the bylaw with the waiver request, we do not believe these features to result in a material detriment to the values protected by the bylaw. And essentially most of it is more or less redevelopment. They're already previously disturbed and altered areas and required, most of them at least, for the safety of anyone adjacent abutting the property with the fencing and signage, and the electrical equipment is required for the function of the panel system. So for stormwater management, the project has been designed to meet the stormwater standards. The vehicular travel on site is not anticipated to significantly change as a result of the project. It's an active bog. The active bog, however many pickup trucks might be driving around for the bog operations, that's expected to stay the same. With the exception of construction, there's not anticipated to be a significant increase in vehicular traffic as a result of the panel system. And then the water levels within the Cranberry Bog and the surrounding impoundments are regularly manipulated, as you know, for Cranberry Bog operations. So the drainage on the site is anticipated more or less to stay the same. Everything currently drains to the bog. It will drain to the bog in the proposed conditions. There's no new discharges proposed off-site. We're not, we're not proposing any new outlets off-site or any alteration of the drainage and the hydrology of the bog itself. Everything's going to continue to kind of drain to that or to Herringbrook or wherever those drainage patterns exist currently. And then for mitigation measures, we do have an erosion and sedimentation control plan, and those details are provided at the end of the plan set. But some of them, as mentioned in the NOI, include temporary stabilization and seeding for any stockpiled areas, dust control, erosion control barriers. We are proposing erosion control matting for the steep slopes or anywhere the slopes are steeper than the 3:1. A stabilized construction exit, and then tree trunk and root zone protection. And then again, after construction, loaming and seeding disturbed areas, as well as the native restoration plantings in the abandoned portion of the roadway. I know that was a lot of information. I'm happy to answer questions, and understanding we will be back again in front of the commission. So,
Is there a battery storage component to this?
not as part of this project, not currently proposed. They are, I'd go back to, so if you take a look here, a little short, but where that orange square is there, that's where the parking area and the concrete equipment pad are located. So those are located outside of wetland resource areas. I would anticipate if they were to add any battery storage feature, they would try to locate it in that area as well.
Okay. And this north is up, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, so because these are tracking,
Yes.
the panels run in a north-south orientation as opposed to east-west on a non...
I believe so. I can't say with certainty. I would have to just check that with the client.
Okay. Because I would imagine that they're going to rotate to follow the sun.
Yes,
So
I presume they would want to
Yeah.
maximize their sunlight. I just would want to confirm that before.
Yeah,
getting it.
with non-moving panels, their orientation is east-west. Because they're already at the pre-angle to get as much sun as they can midday. Okay.
So you said that there's a percentage of area that is covered so that the cranberries can grow then, right? I mean, apparently, was it 50%, is that what you said?
Yeah, so under DEP's policy, and I have a copy of it actually, if it'd be helpful, I'm happy to leave it with the
It's all right.
commission.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, they recommend, they recommend that the shading should not be more than 50% per square foot, which I think is reasonable.
And there's going to be a fence around the whole property, right?
Yes, so as a result of going through planning board at the same time, we're, still working through changes. They've requested a few changes since our initial submittal back in, I think it was the end of August. So there will be, there's the policy for you. A fence is proposed around the exterior of the bog, just to keep people away from the array and the bog. And then a security gate at the entrance to the site.
But far enough not to interfere with the bog.
Oh, correct. It'll be adjacent to the road, like the access road, not right on the bog edge.
Is this bog wet picked?
I am not sure. Could you expand on that? I'm sorry.
Well, there's dry picking and wet picking. Wet picking is when you flood the bogs.
Oh, yes, they flood the bogs
This
for
is
harvesting.
okay.
Yes,
This is wet
sorry.
picking.
Just out of curiosity, they're still going to use the sprinkler systems they have and put chemicals in, and that's going to be fine with the solar array?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the
Okay.
client and the bog owner for that. I anticipate, the information that we've been provided is that the bog operation will maintain the same as current conditions. But I can certainly ask about sprinkler system and.
Yeah, I'm just curious how it's going to be harvested. So I've actually, sorry, Dave. Read about this. So we don't really have long-term data on this method because it's really just started. And I know UMass Amherst has done a lot of research around
Yep.
looking at the impact of shade. And I think it's fair to say that the shade is going to probably make the cranberry production less. Even if it's 50%, it's still shading isn't necessarily good for harvest. So it does impact the cranberries that way, and I just have concerns. I think your plan is really thorough and thoughtful, so I have no issue with that. I do have concerns with this method. Like I've seen canal-mounted solar, I've seen floating solar. I understand those, and less concerned. But this is covering. I'd be curious about the output. It will affect the output and the productivity of that bog. And having a fence as well, we walk the areas, actually lots of beautiful man-made, I think, a lot of it in some natural waterways. But putting the fence around it also might impact wildlife as well. So my whole concern is about impacting wetlands, right, and wildlife, and even potentially the hydrology. I'm not sure if you could speak to that, but.
The current bog is crisscrossed with irrigation ditches, so there's probably not a sprinkler system.
Okay.
So, but as far as the wildlife, that's a good point about the wildlife, though. I mean, the fence maybe should allow some sort of way for wildlife to get through.
I mean, it has to be there's a lot of
There's
wildlife.
some way.
Yeah, I don't know what we've done on
Would you
other.
raise the fence
I
or?
think having some clearance, like potentially like 6 inches of clearance under a fence allows for most animals to get over it. I mean, a 6-foot tall fence, a deer can jump over that, no problem. So a deer would be able to come in and out. So you wouldn't necessarily have to have breaks in the fencing, and that would kind of
Defeat the
ruin
purpose.
Defeat the
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Yeah, you
I used to
wanna
be able to
safe.
jump over a
But,
6-foot fence.
I think 6 inches underneath the fence, just
Running
keeping
start.
like the chain link. I don't know if it'll be a chain link fence. but
That is what's
keeping
proposed.
the bottom of the chain link kind of 6 feet
Yeah.
off the ground. I think most fence contractors can do that. That will allow most animals, like even birds and stuff, to go under.
Turtles, otters.
Yeah, that's certainly something I can bring to the owner and the applicant. I just would want to make sure. I know there's very specific requirements for fencing under even Carver's zoning bylaws with photovoltaic arrays. So we want to make sure the intersection of
Matches, yeah.
the
That makes
interest
sense.
here as well
That
as
makes
there.
sense,
But
yeah.
I think that seems like a reasonable.
So who
request.
owns the bog? I'm just curious how, does the solar
Yes.
company own the bog, or is there a bog owner that is leasing it to the solar company? How's it work?
So the applicant did recently purchase the bog. I'm not 100% sure if all of that has been,
Okay, so
referenced
it's
in
the
town
solar,
documents.
the
But
person putting in the solar that owns the bog.
yes, but they will not be the ones maintaining and operating the bog. There's an
The-
agreement with the previous owner.
I got you.
Yeah, so it says in the NOI that Wenham Land LLC is the owner organization, and the applicant is Wenham PB1 LLC. There was no signature of the applicant or the owner on the application, so I'm not sure if that might be required, but I did notice that there wasn't any signature.
The front page of that should have the applicant's signature,
Okay.
who would be signing on behalf of both. Sorry, on just the other page of what you were looking at, the front side of that page. Yes. Wasn't able to edit the PDF after he had signed, so I just put
Yeah.
a second page.
Is there a timeline for completion?
I can't speak to that at the moment. Like I said, we're still going through planning board. I'd want to defer to the applicant on a timeline, especially for construction. I think right now we're just trying to get through the permitting.
Okay. I know other dual-use smart programs have been delayed primarily because of Eversource's inability to have the infrastructure ready.
Cannot speak to that. I know they've had conversations about the interconnection agreements. don't have too many details on that. I would look for guidance or response from the client. I can certainly get back to you on that.
I'd certainly rather see this happen than chop down trees and just put in solar panels. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and I know cranberries are, this gives extra money, I guess, to the people in cranberry bogs, I guess.
And to your point, I believe there are facets of this SMART program that require a certain percentage of yield to be maintained. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think they don't, based on what I saw, they really don't know what to expect. Like, there's no long-term data. So over
Right,
time, it could
yes.
decrease every year.
Cranberries are somewhat shade tolerant as a
Underbrush,
species.
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm certainly not looking at the studies. I know at UMass Amherst has started some, but like you said, it's all relatively new.
Yeah.
But in, natural conditions, they are in a bog understory.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So when they do this, is it stay under agricultural exemption? I mean, as far as tax
Zoning.
purposes and everything else like that, I mean, how does it transfer to
good
more commercial?
question.
I just don't understand,
Yeah,
because now commercially, it's no longer agriculture, it's solar, but I guess because there's incentives to do solar through the state, it's probably a complicated thing, but I'm not sure how.
I would agree that it's probably a complicated thing, and
Yeah.
I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wonder how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I would think, at least under the Wetlands Protection Act, because it would still be used as an agricultural crop and as an active bog, that it would maintain some of the agricultural exemptions, but I can't speak to the, like you said, I think more big picture, there's a lot of intricacies to how it will be managed.
So technically, some of the work that's being done here, it doesn't fall under agriculture exemption, right? Is that right?
No.
right, it doesn't.
It does not.
No, because it's not
Right.
supporting the use.
So
as
it would
ag-
require a variance on our part
Correct.
to do this, because
Correct.
it's not agricultural, okay.
Right.
And I think we just have to determine if we think that the wetlands or any part of it is being compromised as a
Right.
result. And I do have some concerns about that.
Yeah.
That
You're
it,
not using telephone poles for the things, right?
no, probably metal.
Cyanide.
Metal.
Steel galvanized iron.
Pillars of cyanide.
Yeah.
Because that's been tried before.
Yes, it has.
Okay, so we need to continue this to, till when we get the DEP number.
Yeah, so our next meeting is December 4th. We have a meeting after that, December 18th. Yeah, it's a lot of information, so it helps us to have some time to consider it. Do you think your engineer will be able to come to the next one?
That's the
Or,
goal.
like,
It's certainly, yeah,
someone
like,
from the, I don't know, one of the owner or whoever.
yeah, it was just unfortunate timing that they both weren't able to attend this evening.
No worries,
But
I mean, you did a great job.
Thank you.
I just had, like a technical question, that, I'll probably bring up next time, but.
Okay.
I just have one question for Emil that maybe you can think about is, would it be better to have the solar array come in and let that just become a swamp? Would that be less detrimental than trying, I think like it's going to be difficult to harvest.
Well, I
It changes a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it's a positive thing that it is a dual use, that it, remains like viable for agriculture. We want to keep agriculture happening in the town, so it's positive, from that standpoint. I think ecologically, like, having solar panels there, it's not gonna allow like, swamp trees to grow up in and around the solar array.
That's
It's
true,
it's
yeah.
just not going to get back to like a
Right.
True swamp
Right.
habitat like we would see around in Carver. So I think like the hydrology, again, like Taylor mentioned, it's been like kind of designed in a way that this bog can get flooded and drained out at different times of the year. So you're really not going to get that like natural swamp
Okay.
unless someone actually would return it back to a natural state and do some kind of restoration, opening up some of the channels and floodgates and stuff like that.
That makes sense with the panels there. Yeah,
it's
okay.
just like once the panels are in, It is a question like, if the farming does not become viable over time, like it is a real question, like what happens to, a solar array like this. I think it's probably going to be a situation where, if it's not a productive cranberry farm, then it's just going to be a solar array in a bog that has a bunch of undergrowth that's coming up, and it gets periodically cut back.
Right.
So it's just,
But I would think also it would fall under a different tax structure, if it's no longer agriculture. You know what I mean? There'd be a whole different thing going on
Maybe,
there.
I'm
you know?
not
I think 61A goes away.
It would.
I think it goes away with solar. Because that was part of the SMART program that didn't make sense to me when it first came out, was that they lost their exemption, their agricultural tax exemption. But, I mean, that's easily findable, because if they do lose the tax exemption, they would have to pay the difference in back taxes for the past 5 years.
Right.
And that would be a financial discovery or disclosure.
Yeah, and there's the requirement under SMART program to have at least 20 years of agricultural production to continue, and it's kind of hard to tell on the plan here, but the spacing between the rows is, I forget the exact number offhand, it's greater than 20 feet, so it's not like the panels are going to be right next to each other either, so you'll have spacing, or, light penetration available from that spacing as well.
Right, and if any agriculture does not produce what the threshold is, then they lose their incentives. They lose their money.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look into if there is a requirement for production under that program as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any other
Curtis,
questions.
still with us? All right, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 27 Wenham Road until our next meeting on December 4th.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Carl and Dave made the motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we're good on our public hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hard copies of these, if you'd like them as well. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, going back to our discussions, we have four items on, still to go.
Hang in there, Curtis.
We're rounded third.
That's right. Concom property acceptance and signing of the deed, 59 Fosdick Road.
56.
56. I had it upside down.
So this property was accepted and approved at town meeting in 2023. It's a property, I have a map of it for you guys. We can pass this around. It's on Fosdick Road. It's kind of between the Johnson Cranberry Farm and the residential houses on Fosdick Road. It was approved to be put under the Conservation Commission's management, and really right now, we did an environmental assessment on it. I mean, everything turned out, it looked positive for the property. So, the select board just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any real environmental hazards on the site before they went ahead and signed the deed. So they went ahead and did that assessment. Everything looks good. So now they've given us the go ahead to sign the deed, and then they'll, finish off and sign the deed as well. So again, this property will fall under conservation management. We don't have any current plans for it, but it does have kind of like a existing trail on it. It's probably doesn't really have any areas for parking, but it's probably just gonna be like a neighborhood type nature walking area.
How many acres is it?
I think it's it should say on that map that Curtis has, right in the middle of that, that top one.
I can't read that.
I can't read that either.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's like 5,
Maybe, yeah, it looks like a 5 point something acres.
5.6, something like
Yeah.
that.
I'll take your word for it.
Not a huge property, but
I
it is it's a beautiful area. I've walked back there with the town planner. It's very green and lush.
Magnifying glass.
I was
5.07.
gonna get my phone out,
Yeah.
blow it up.
5.07 acres.
So,
What's your guess?
I guess it's a vote to approve
Yes.
the, accept the property and sign the deed. There's a spot for all of you guys to sign. And then there's also a spot, for someone to sign, as a notarized signer. So I don't know if you guys would prefer me to sign that and get it notarized in the town hall. I think
Yeah,
that-
you
that
would probably do that,
be
and then have
fine.
Kara notarize it for you. All right.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the property at 56 Fosdick Road.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Carl and Ann. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That's approved 5-0. Next up, discussion of the Lakeview Street Working Group.
Yes, so the town manager has reached out to the town planner and asked for Tom Bott, the town planner, to kind of head up a working group on the properties, the town-owned properties at Lakeview Street, including the Council of Aging and the beach, the recreation property, as well as our property. So I met with them, all the different town staff members, and kind of just went over our plans for the property. I told them we already have secured funding for property, for projects on 44 Lakeview Street. But the town manager just wants everyone to be on the same page before we move ahead with stuff like ripping down the fence. I think we all want to get rid of that fence so that there's some throughways between to the new property. And so he's asked for one member of the Conservation Commission to, sit on that working group. It would probably be like 2 meetings over the winter time, to get an idea of the direction of these properties. Again, our property is going to be used for conservation and recreation purposes. So it's not like we're, changing that, but this is a opportunity for us to, speak on behalf of the projects that we want to, see done there, and that we already have funding for, and, just kind of give our perspective on the joint properties that are over there. So I guess I would look for someone to volunteer or nominate themselves. I know Savory has already offered to sit on this.
I had offered because I'd been involved a little bit beforehand with the Recreation Committee and the pickleball court and an overall plan. But if somebody else wants to do it, I would gladly step aside.
Well, it's my understanding that these meetings are gonna take place during business hours, so
Okay,
it's gonna have to be someone that's gonna be available during the day.
okay.
So go for it.
Then it's me.
I mean, I'll do it too if you want, but if you won't do it, it's fine. It's fine by me.
No, I'll do it. I mean, it's just going to be a couple of meetings. It's just more facts as opposed to decisions. All right, so I'll do
Yep, so
that.
I will tell Tom that you're willing to sit on that, and he'll reach out to you and kind of coordinate when times that would be available for that.
All right, can you ask Tom to either ask Dan Badger to join the group or to come and speak to the group, because he has all that volunteer
Definitely.
work
Sure.
and people that he had talked about when he was
Yeah.
on this board.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so I think he's an integral part of this going forward, or his all his preliminary work that he's done on it.
Yes, yeah. So far, it's going to be a representative of the Select Board, the COA Director, representative of the Recreation Committee, the Conservation Committee, the Operations and Maintenance Director, and town engineering firm, Fuss & O'Neill.
Okay, all right. I mean, I have an idea of what Dan's going to do, but he has
He has the crayon drawings. that we
Yes.
need.
Yes, we only have
I
copies.
do have the crayon drawing in my
And he
possession.
has the names of numbers of the people who said they would do in-kind work. So,
He got some students, I guess, lined up for next summer, I think he said. I talked to him one day.
oh, okay.
And he said he.
Well, I think that he should be, if not a member of the committee, at least a guest. Okay. Next up, Buckman Park Playground mulching, 0 Bates Pond Road.
Yes, so this was news to me, but back in 2021, the town meeting, the select board transferred quite a few properties to the Conservation Commission, and the town administrator gave me a copy of that vote and all of the properties that were included in that, and one of those is this property. It's a playground on Bates Pond Road. I'm not sure if any of you have been down there, but it's a very small playground with 3 different play areas in it. The Conservation Commission is the entity that manages this property, and the community around in and around that park has been saying that it's not safe because there is the wood chips have been worn down over time.
Who manages it? Who should be managing it? The rec department?
The Carver Conservation Commission is the
Property owner.
property
Okay,
manager.
all right.
Yeah.
This came up at the last recreation, or not the last one, but the one before that. I believe one of the residents of that area came and was asking us about it. And I
Yep.
do remember that vote, and I was kind of surprised that I think that's the only playground in town that doesn't fall under control of the Recreation Committee, and I don't know why that vote was taken or
Yes.
written in the
Yeah,
warrant.
it's not our typical property. Typically, we have property that's dedicated to conservation, recreation, walking trails, open space. This property, it's one of those properties that, I think.
neighborhood too, right?
Yeah, I'll pass around the map. So that's
If I'm not
the map.
mistaken, I think it was done with CPC funding.
To like restore it and build
Yeah.
the
Bring it
like
to it
play areas. Yeah, so it's a nice area, but essentially there are 4,459 square feet of play area that needs to be mulched. And I went out there, I walked around, and I basically determined that we need between 3 and 6 inches of mulch in different areas. So I did a calculation. And it comes out to approximately 62 cubic yards of play mulch that needs to be put down out there. So the director, or the associate director of the operations and maintenance department, John Woods, he helped get quotes from 3 different companies for this. And one company is the only company that actually got back to him.
Tree removal.
I think I remember doing that back. So it's like,
Is quoting this at $2,746, including delivery, for 62 yards of this play mulch from a Bridgewater Farm Supply.
it was over here.
So, yeah, essentially we're looking to get approval to use conservation maintenance funds for $2,746 for that play mulch. Again, it'd be 62 yards to fill these 3 play areas, and make this property safe.
Who would spread it around? Who would,
That is a good question.
anyone doing anything Saturday?
It may just be me out there. The operations and maintenance, deputy director John Woods, he said that he would, be willing to help provide, equipment. He also said he would use the operations maintenance truck to pick it up if needed. But it seems like they're willing to deliver it for $80. And so, it'll probably just be one person with a bobcat, and then someone with wheelbarrows and a rake out there. But again, I know there's people in the neighborhood who are interested in it. Maybe they'd be willing to help. But I mean, right now, the Conservation Commission maintains this property. I'm the only person on the conservation staff, so it might be me out there spreading this mulch. But I don't know. That's just like, this is really unusual that we manage this property. I talked to the town manager. I was like, this really isn't what we want to be spending our money on. for conservation, we want to be doing stuff like trail maintenance. So hopefully we can get this property, like, I don't know, kind of sorted out. Maybe we can get this also put under the recreation committee, but yeah, I just know that this.
I'm going to vote no on that.
I don't remember this being part of the properties we accepted, but
Yeah.
I think we accepted a lot
I remember coming up
at
at town
once.
meeting and I've been like, huh, what?
But it was multiple properties all
They
grouped
put all,
together.
if you read I mean, it's in that attachment that I gave you, there's quite a few properties. And recently I've been doing the research on how many acres of property do we own and where are they in the town. And it seems that we as a Conservation Commission own and manage at least 530 acres of land in the town of Carver.
We do?
There's a lot of property. You know, there's big ones like the coal property, but there's a bunch of smaller ones that are like 12, 6, 10 acres.
Wareham Street, there are a couple of
Plus
them.
5.07 acres.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's my guess.
yeah. So there's quite a bit of land out there that we manage. I know we'd like to do more with it. Haven't really had the time recently to focus on land management as much as I would like to, just because there's a lot going on with permitting and just staying on top of these applications. We have like a regulatory requirement as the town of Carver to issue these permits, so that's really where I focus my time. But I would love to, at least Wade Street is a nice piece of property that would be great to make a trail on or something like that. So I would like to. Hopefully in the future we can do more stuff with that money, but right now this is like the one where people are really like up in arms about it because they think it's a safety issue. So I think that's really why I would make this request.
Well, let's spread the mulch and then maybe turn it over to recreation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think this amount of money.
Only after the work's done.
Yeah,
So how much money is it, 2,000?
It's $2,746.
I think we've got to,
We've kind of got to do something about it. So.
yes, I know, but we've got to also make sure that if we're being offered these properties, that there aren't these hidden costs associated with them. And I'm wondering if we talk to the Finance Committee about somehow getting financing if this is, because this is something that's going to be ongoing. The mulch isn't going to last forever. We're going to probably have to do it every couple of years.
Yeah, I think it lasted quite a long time.
This isn't your regular mulch. This is a fiber mulch that's designed for playground, so it does have a longer lifespan
Yeah.
than the mulch you put around in your planting beds.
Okay. But
yeah,
still,
Yeah, it doesn't last forever, you're right.
But, to Emil's point, we don't want our funding to go towards a playground. We want it to go towards trail maintenance and whatever we're going to do at Lakeview Street and the properties on Indian Street. There's a lot that, there's money that we have that we should be spent on conservation because we're not going to get that money from anywhere else, but they're playground money that should be from somewhere else, from the town. So,
I mean, even mowing grass at Lakeview Street, normally you'd think that'd come under operations or something, but I mean, I guess
well,
it's another thing.
yes and no.
Yeah.
Well, operations and maintenance does maintain a lot of the playing fields in the town. The baseball field, soccer field, stuff like that. But yeah, I think conservation kind of just we're been left out here alone for a while. So yeah, something I can definitely advocate for more.
All right. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to spend the $2,746 to purchase the mulch and the delivery for the property for the Buckman Park Playground.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Carl and Ann. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Passed unanimously. Okay. Last but not least, and then we have the minutes. Discussion of the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Where did we come up with with things here.
Yeah, so we had a brief discussion about this last meeting. It was just Carl, Dave, and Ann and myself. But, you know, one of the things, the real thing that we talked about was kind of buttoning down a definition for cranberry bogs under our bylaw and making sure that there's jurisdiction over, you know, cranberry bogs, regardless of whether they're considered upland cranberry bogs by the state. They still exhibit wetland characteristics. It seems like it's the you know board's wish to make sure that those areas are protected under our bylaw. Right now, we have one specific bylaw that we've been enforcing, which is the 100-foot no new dwellings within 100 feet of any bog, and that includes upland bogs. And I think where the regulation falls short is that in the statement of jurisdiction, we don't specifically call out cranberry bogs in the initial, like, you know, just like the 65-foot.
We say bog.
area. So I think it needs to be changed to cranberry bog for that, and I also think it would be good to just include a definition of cranberry bog in the bylaw. And you know, at the last meeting, we had discussed like me coming up with like a draft of what that could sound like. So I did my best right before this meeting to come up with that. You know, I didn't have a lot of time to spend on this, but yeah, I think there's probably other stuff that you guys are looking at considering changes for. But in the past, we've you know, broken it up into several different articles where we would request specific changes to the bylaw. So I think that's, you know, one of the places where, you know, the statement of jurisdiction, making sure that, you know, all of the statement of jurisdiction includes cranberry bogs in general. And then for the cranberry bog definition, I just wrote this. Cranberry bog would be defined as, for the purposes of this bylaw, the term bog or cranberry bog shall refer to any land where cranberries, Vaccinium macrocarpon, are currently or have been previously grown, cultivated, or harvested, regardless of whether the bog was constructed from a wetland or an upland area. So that was kind of what I came up with really quick. But I think that would, you know, at least help to define in the bylaw exactly what we're talking about. You know, these areas, whether it's an abandoned bog that's, you know, been left, but it still has wetland features and it was used for cranberries. If it's an upland cranberry bog that was created in a, you know, a field or an upland area, but it exhibits wetland characteristics, wetland values, or a, you know, a typical wetland bog like we have a lot of in Carver. You know, if we want to take jurisdiction over them under the bylaw, it has to be very clear. So I know that's, you know, just one of the main things that it seems like we want to do. And I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is for the town meeting. I know that I think we're having one in April.
It's usually in April, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to have our proposals into the select board probably right around the first of the year. Because then they have to have public hearings on each of the articles.
Yep.
And then get it all ready. And I think everything closes by the end of February, that the warrant has to be buttoned up so they can print it and get it ready for an April
Makes sense.
meeting. So we don't have much time to work on that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering now if you want to just, I'm thinking that in the jurisdictional area, it already says bog.
Yes, it does.
So we should add cranberry bog, not keep them both as one. We should say bog, comma, cranberry bog. So it's its own entity.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
So, but is it clear though that even though it's an upland bog, it's functionally, as far as we're concerned, a wetland, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So should we just say it?
Include
like
that in.
I mean,
The definition, are you saying?
Any bog, no matter what it is functionally a wetland.
Hmm.
And, you know, because we want to be very clear, we don't, you know, I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
I think that, I think what Emil has done with Cranberry Bog is fine. I think, because that's where we're going to have most of our issues.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, say those cranberry bogs at 19 Rochester Road that we were at, you know, those have been long abandoned. There's huge trees growing out of them. Right now, it's completely dry. So it's hard to kind of say that is functioning as a wetland without having some kind of, you know, deeper evidence, like some soil borings or something like that would give us some evidence of that. So I don't know. I feel like, you know, broadly taking jurisdiction over them is one thing, but if it's really not functioning like a wetland, you know, then it's something that we would have to look at in that specific case. But I don't think it would hurt to include that that, you know, that's our position.
What's the definition of functioning as a wetland, though? I mean, like for instance, the bogs, Lakeview Street, you know, those 3 houses put in. I mean, those are functioning as a wetland, weren't they? I mean.
Yes, certainly.
So.
Yeah, and when it comes to a wetland, like what is a wetland? It comes down to wetland hydrology. Is there hydrology? Those bogs clearly have hydrology. Do they have wetland plants? Cranberries are a wetland, you know, obligate plant. They have to grow in wetlands, in wet areas. And then do they support, you know, the functions, wetland functions, and are there wetland soils that go on along with that?
So even though it's an upland bog, if it has cranberry plants in it, it's considered a wetland, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And that's.
I mean,
Okay.
you know, so if it has plants, and cranberries are one of those plants.
Yeah, that's why I specifically called out like the Latin name of the cranberry plant,
okay.
because, you know, if it has that plant, then it's
It's a wetland.
Then it's a wetland. Yeah.
Okay. That makes it very simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Are we going to, now, after tonight, are we going to eliminate replication as an option?
Yeah, so I don't know if replication is specifically mentioned in the bylaw beyond what's specifically mentioned in the state regulations. You know, I think there are cases where it comes into play that it, you know, for example, like if you have a stream crossing where someone has a buildable lot, but the only way to access it is to go over a, you know, stream that runs like horizontal or parallel to a road. That's a case where, you know, people would allow you to put in a culvert and fill over a wetland, and you would have to do replication for that. But that actually, you know, allows for, you know, someone to build a house on a buildable piece of property. So that's kind of why those regulations are there, and that's why it's up to the Conservation Commission to use its discretion as to what, you know, in what circumstances would you allow for disturbance of a wetland. You know, it's typically very, very rare that, you know, that circumstance comes into play, and I think that's, you know, where we have to be a little bit more, you know, like firm with people. Like we're not gonna, you know, allow you to do that just willy-nilly just for, you know, making this project look better on paper. That's my opinion. I think there are circumstances where replication is useful and can be done, but I think it really needs to be done with a wetlands professional. Like, you know, we had John Zimmer come in, and you know, he's done a lot of those projects. He would oversee a project like that to the end of its completion, and we'd hope that you know, area that's replicated, you know, turns out to be, you know, functional in the ways that the disturbed wetland
Again, if we allow it for one, we allow it for all.
So could you just say it just for infrastructure, not for houses, like it being like utility
No,
lines
that's-
or something?
It's going to be very hard to write it like exactly what you guys are saying, because like this has to be written like, you know, in like a legal context that's going to stand up in, you know, in court and stuff like that. So it has to be written very carefully. And so I guess like I think what we should do is think about it a little bit more and, you know, really come up with what it is that the commission feels about this. Like I know this just came out specifically tonight, but yeah, I think it'd be worth just considering exactly it is that you're trying to write in this regulation.
Well, I mean, I think one thing is we definitely don't want wetland boundaries to move and then be replicated for purposes
Yes.
of the buffer zone.
Yes,
Like,
and
I don't
that's-
think we ever want that to happen.
Yeah.
Right? That happened with this. That's unusual.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, and that's just not the way that
Otherwise, the house
regulation-
wouldn't have been built.
Right.
That's
Right,
why it
that's-
happened.
No. I mean,
Right,
Or they got a
right.
variance,
Oh, you
but
could-
you
right,
wouldn't
you
give
could
a
get a
variance that
Yes,
close.
yes.
We wouldn't give a variance that close because we'd have to give it to everybody.
Right, exactly. But I just think like moving a buffer zone, and then I've never heard of that, but you all know more than I do.
Well, it was, you know, it was just a little bit of a finger of a wetland that created this massive buffer zone that prevented this house from being built. So, you know, our feeling was that this is, by getting rid of this little thing, you're going to free up so much more land. And there was room in the back to replicate without really affecting the buffer zone in the rear
Then.
part of the lot.
Yeah.
There must be some way we could word it though that would cover.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. And, you know, it's not cheap to do that,
No.
to replicate. So it's a, you know, it's a financial burden on the builder. So he's
Yeah.
got to make a decision whether he wants to spend that money or reduce the size of his house or change the orientation so that, you know, it doesn't go in there.
I think this one's, excuse me, was a little bit unusual because we weren't just replicating, you were filling and replicating.
Right.
Right? So we were
You're
taking
filling in
away.
wetlands.
Well, that's, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what
but that's-
replication is.
That's basically
We
what
were
it is.
just, yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't replicate just for the hell of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So- All right, well, let's think about that, see if we can come up with
As
some
far as
language.
the other item, though, the definition of a bog, I think you have it down pretty well there, right? I mean,
I'm thinking of maybe putting under cranberry bog, having a definition, having 2 bullet points under cranberry bog, one being upland, one being wetland.
Sure.
Where a wetland bog is always considered a wetland regardless of the activity on it, whereas an upland bog is, an upland cranberry bog is determined to be a wetland when it is an active producing bog.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, so,
Because then someone's gonna have to make a decision whether they stop producing in order to create.
yeah, I'll go back and forth with you by email just to
So what
like iron that out.
Okay.
We can talk about it
so
at our
what would
next
be the
meeting.
purpose of that, though?
Well, you know, what Emil said was, you know, even for an upland bog that's been abandoned, that it would still be qualified as a wetland. But then we brought up the point of the ones that we looked at today, where there are 40-year-old trees in there that
Right.
isn't. So again, what we're doing in that case is creating a gray area.
Yes.
We're creating a judgment call, so to speak. And we want to kind of remove ourselves from that so that we make our jobs easier and we make the developers' jobs easier because they can go in knowing that it's this or this. And it's not
Yeah,
a
so
guess. Well, maybe the
essentially-
trees are only 30 years old, maybe they're only 10 years old.
Essentially, like, if there was a bog that was abandoned
Right.
30 years ago, and it's been, completely cut off from any water source, anything like that, it's no longer functioning as a wetland because it has no hydrology. It doesn't have wetland plants anymore. It's got, mature trees growing out of it, and, the soils are dry, well-drained soils. So that, to me, is, an upland area that, isn't jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act, and we shouldn't necessarily take jurisdiction over it just because 70 years ago someone grew cranberries there. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how this definition that I just kind of came up with reads. But, it would be helpful to make a distinction, for the most part, the bogs that we're dealing with where people have like cranberry bogs that are upland cranberry bogs, they're, for the majority, they're still in production and they're still being used. They still have water running through them.
So if there's water present, like a tailings pond, for instance, that they're no longer using, I mean, if there's still water in it, then it's still functioning as a wetlands, right? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but
Yes.
that's different than a bog itself.
Right,
I think
right.
for a cranberry bog, we have to indicate that.
And that's another
upland-
question is, totally different subject, but the
Right.
state doesn't take jurisdiction over a man-made pond
Yeah.
either that has water in it. And I think it'd be worthwhile to make that also a
They're sort of
jurisdictional
one and the
wetland.
same, though, you're still working under the premises.
Yes,
you're
but I
talking
think
there's
we need to-
hydrology there.
yes.
Right, so, I mean, we should define both of those probably.
Yes, and I think we need to make them, each separate things because, I don't know, I just feel like the cranberry growers, they're very, they're very protective of what they do and they're a big part of this town, and I think we need to make sure that their, voices are heard and that they're allowed to, be a part of this decision. I think it's, they want to make sure that they're, allowed to still do what they're trying to do and have agricultural exemptions that still apply, everything like that. And yeah, I could just see them, being very careful about how you,
Maybe
put these
that's, maybe that's the way the financial, if a cranberry bog is given 61A rights, then it's considered a wetland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're getting a tax break on a cranberry bog, then it's considered a wetland.
Right.
That sounds good.
I just don't know how, how
that's
the
one way to
town
look at it.
council is going to look at that.
Let's go back to money.
Well, you can have 61A, it doesn't have to be a cranberry bog.
No, but if a cranberry bog is getting 61A relief, then it's considered a wetland.
Because it would have to be a producing bog.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not happy with mixing the money part with the conservation part. It was just a thought. In and out.
Town council.
All right.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about with adding to the town meeting? Just those two items, pretty much? Replication and cranberry bog? Anything else?
No.
Well, I'll send you an email.
We're here.
No.
Okay, so yeah, so I have long thought that maybe it would be good if someone from Conservation Commission could sit on the Earth Removal Committee. Just because there's a lot of overlap in what we do.
I think that's going to come through the earth removal bylaw, though. I think that would have to be an amendment to the earth removal bylaw, because our bylaw says has nothing to do with earth removal. So that's a proposal that you could certainly make to the town and put that as an article. And I think that's a
But it's not,
valid
it's
point.
not from the Conservation
But
Is there,
Commission.
is there a
not gonna go
restriction
into
on
our
sitting on two
wetland bylaw.
permitting boards?
Yes, so
Yes,
that
there are-
if
there is.
you're, I think
no.
it has to do with like being an elected member. Or no, if you're sitting on two boards that issue permits for the town, I think you can only be a full member on one of
A
those
voting
boards.
member on one of the boards?
Yeah.
I thought it was,
Unless you're elected, then you can be on both.
I'll ask Jill.
Yeah.
I already went through that.
I thought it was if one of the
Yeah.
committees had a financial.
The problem with that was because it was an
aspect to it.
appointment, not an election. It wasn't
I know-
an election. You weren't elected to it by the town, by the people of the town.
For some reason,
Normally, you'd go on the ballot and the people would vote,
Right.
but this was an appointment, so there was a conflict. or
somewhere
whatever.
I thought I heard there's and this might be a recent rule, that you can't sit on two permitting boards. Because I
Okay.
believe there are people that had to choose between one board or the other, whether it be zoning and conservation or zoning and,
Right. Okay.
Especially where, like you just said, these two overlap
Right.
between concept, there's a definite conflict.
I would think there's a definite conflict of interest with between those two. I don't think that our legal teams would allow that
No,
to
I
happen.
don't even.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Last thing, minutes from November 6th.
I've read them, and I think Ashley did a wonderful job.
I was in Jasper, Alberta.
So I'm going to guess you're abstaining.
Yes.
I make a motion, we approve as written.
I second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Conservation Commission minutes from November 6th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, there's 4 yeses and...
No,
Three.
three.
Oh,
abstentions.
all right, so it's 302. 302 is the vote on that, 2 abstentions.
I wasn't able to talk that day. I had no voice whatsoever.
You were here in spirit.
All right, last but not least, a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out. Thank you, Area 58.